So this is Why Did They Ever Leave by Paul J Sorrentino. I guess it says that he wrote most of this in 1980, but in the inscription, it also says that he left it. Here's a handwritten letter from your mom that says, Paula, Dad wanted to re-edit his manuscript, but he never completed. If you want to hand me that remote, we'll turn it down even a little more. He never completed the job. This is it's hard to read her handwriting. A lazy something. What does that say?
A copy.
Oh, a copy of his original manuscript, and I know you will enjoy reading it and hearing. Never read it. Hearing his written word about his cultural background and ours. Love, Mom. So, and also says this book is dedicated to my children, Mary Therese, Lena, Paula, and Leonora. Parentheses Nori. And to my grandchildren, the ones with the strange sounding Italian names. I think he's kidding because we don't have Italian names.
Who do you put it to?
All of us. Tyrone, Mario. Now that's Italian, hero. Drew Barrett, Dylan Reed. He spelled my middle name wrong. Graham Maxwell and Henry Jackson is dedicated to them because they are of the generation of the 21st century, and this knowledge is being passed on to them as a gift from the century preceding them.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know you put that in there.
Yeah. On occasion, at some inquisitive moment, my children would ask questions about our past and our heredity, and after each incident, I was amazed at how little they really knew about us, their parents. They were too young, too restless, too much in a hurry, too interested in their own lives to listen to an in-depth response or discussion. Having had similar experiences as a young person, many have been the times when I have wished that I would have been more inquisitive, reference our family history, and that I would have stopped to listen. As the years passed by, this whole matter became of a real annoyance, an itch to me. With that in mind, this is written in answer to all the questions for which my children had no time to ask or simply they forgot to ask. He's pretty funny, right?
Yeah, no time to ask. My dad did have a sense of humor.
He's hilarious. From childhood, I inherited a struggle for life. The knowledge necessary for putting together the manuscript of this book is a gift from that struggle. Had life not afforded me some of the drama and even some of the agony delineated in this biography, this book would never have come to fruition. It was Christine, my wife, that repeatedly urged the recording for posterity of some of the most tender moments in the lives of the Sorrentinos. Please understand that no malice is meant when describing some of the more controversial, sometimes delicate situations. And also, please keep in mind that human memory can be deceptive and that the human mind can also be creative. That's a great intro.
It is.
Why Did They Ever Leave is chapter 1. Why did the Sicilian immigrant ever leave the beautiful, sunny, ocean-bathed Carlentini, Sicily? And why, of all places, did they settle in Omaha, Nebraska, in the central part of the United States, in the heart of America's wheat and corn farmland, extremely strange to them? Why did they emigrate from their warm southern comfort and their citrus orchards and vineyards to the frigid, snow-covered corn and wheat-producing Midwest? It didn't make sense. There had to be some reason. Economically, during the late 18th century and early 19th century, so that's the late 1700s and 1800s, yeah. The Sicily was experiencing a very deep depression, just as were many areas of Europe, and coincidentally the Western movement had reached the Midwestern states. Because Omaha had played a major role in the development of the railroad, and because there was every indication that Omaha would become a railroad center, it had become a springboard for the movement of people and industry westwardly. There was a great need for human resources that were not readily available in Omaha. To add to the wonderment of the Sicilians leaving home for places unknown to them is the fact that the Sicilian family is very close-knit. Families in Sicily lived together and enjoyed the simple pleasure of life together. Their homes were contiguous and families were separated only by a central courtyard or simply a stone wall. This manner of living carried over to relatives and friends. The poverty brought by the Depression brought them closer together. Helping and comforting each other was a joy that they could afford, but that was all they could afford.
Yeah.
The breaking up of the family was even greater sacrifice than going to live in some strange place. Each year, as the fall harvest was ending and the winter chill would make itself felt in the small and peaceful island town on the eastern slopes of the province of Syracuse, a whispering rumor would raise its ugly head. Do you want to say how to say that right there? Right there.
Scarsita di frumento.
There's a scarcity of wheat. That's what it means. Scarsita di frumento. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, good.
Was repeated in awe. As winter approached, the rumor grew to a quiet panic. Yeah, it's got to be scary, right? You don't have food. That's real. That's real
They
problems.
were starving.
Yeah. And it spread as though wafted by the winter winds. This could very well be the cause of another winter depression. No wheat meant no flour. No flour meant no bread. The staff of life. A phrase that took on some real significance when applied to the prevailing situation. Sicily was not a wheat-producing island, and each year seemingly it had become more difficult to raise the amount of wheat necessary for survival. Bread was their basic food substance. During bad economic conditions, families would hoard rice and beans and a sack or two of wheat, which would be ground to flour as needed. They would butterfly, codfish, bacalao. Do you know how to say that word? Basalao? Anyways.
I don't know.
Bacalao.
Bacalao, I guess.
The Mediterranean. Salt it to preserve it and hang it up high in some corner of one of the rooms in the house where it would keep and the cats could not get to it. They raised chickens for their eggs, and when a chicken quit laying eggs, it was killed and used for soup. Chicken soup was reserved for a special Sunday dinner or for the ill of health. A few families that had the proper facilities would raise pigs to be butchered as needed. They made sausage from the pork. They cured it and hung it up high just as they did the codfish. They cured olives provided by the ancient olive trees found in the countryside. They kept goats for milk and they processed their own cheese made from goat milk. That was probably good.
Just so think about
Yeah.
it. They had goat's cheese, sausage.
Pigs, yeah, it's all, like a very subsistence living, old school style,
Yeah.
before the market economy. They have animals.
It was
and
probably pretty healthy food.
chicken
It's
and
just
the
they didn't have
eggs
enough of it
Yeah, for sure. And they needed wheat. That was their primary thing, I think.
because they needed that bread.
Yeah. Some of the flour available was used for making but it's interesting to imagine these families at this time, they're just before the internet, before all this stuff, they're just
And this was
enjoying
in
each other's company
your grandfather's lifetime.
and living from the land. Yeah.
This isn't your
This is right before him, but also during his
No,
lifetime.
it's when he was a kid.
Yeah,
he's
but
watching
we
this.
haven't gotten to him being born yet.
Oh, okay.
He's describing the people right before him,
Okay.
his dad's generation and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
but it is like right before his lifetime.
Right.
Like the late 1800s and stuff.
That's
so it's
true.
like
Yeah.
right
He's
before
like,
he was
I think
born.
my dad was born in 1920.
1919.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that in there?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sweetheart.
So
I didn't
some
know.
of them,
I couldn't remember when my dad was born. I don't even know when he died.
being the family historian, this is what you gotta figure out. The favorite dish was pasta with their own cheese made from goat milk. That sounds good. Some of the flour available was used for making a variety of pasta, often formed into noodles and dried on top of a clean bed linen. Pasta e fragioli. Pasta with
Fragioli, that's with
beans. And riso e fragioli,
Pasta
rice and beans,
Fragioli.
were common staples. The favorite dish was pasta with a multitudinous variety of sauces made from tomatoes. During the winter months, they used a preserve called estrato, a tomato paste that had been sun-dried, rolled into a large ball, and preserved by wrapping it with cheesecloths soaked with olive oil. Each small town had its forneo, baker, who operated a community oven. By the way, I don't know if I'm saying these Italian words right.
That's the forneo, yeah.
A loaf of the bread baked there was the price paid by anyone using the oven. The baker earned his living by selling the bread that he collected.
It's nicely
The
inside.
inside,
So lovely. Fats
community
melt
oven.
inside.
Yeah, you
Oh,
go
yeah.
use the oven, you have to leave him one of your loaves, and then he'd
Yeah.
sell the loaves
Yeah.
to make his money back.
So this is all the small
Wow,
life of
this is really
Carlentini,
good.
Sicily.
This
Yeah,
is really
this is his
interesting.
background right here.
That's really interesting. I'm just going to get a piece down.
The inside of the oven was lined with a stone that retained heat. Wood brambles were used to heat the oven and then removed. The oven would remain hot for hours. When tomatoes were in season, a portion of the bread dough was set aside to be pressed flat, covered with fresh tomato sauce, sprinkled with olive oil and oregano, and baked. So that sounds almost like pizza.
Yeah.
Tomatoes were in season, a portion of the bread dough was set aside to be pressed flat, covered with fresh. Yeah, that's a pizza. Before adding the ingredients, the surface was pinched pizzicato to form pockets which would keep the oil and the tomato juices from spilling off the side. This was the real original pizza, many years later to be greatly embellished and adopted by the Americans. The word pizza possibly stems from a shortened version of the Italian word pizzicare. See, now this is my Nannu. He'll teach you about real pizza.
Yeah, he likes words too.
Yeah.
He likes food and words.
I love it.
What's the word?
Pizzicare, the original pizza,
Pizzicato.
and pizzicato.
Yeah. Pizzicato.
All of the aforementioned were survival foods of the peasantry, brought to America by the southern Italians and particularly by the Sicilians. These foods were not expensive. They were of no real cost. It was, in the truest sense of the phrase, survival food. But they wanted more than just simply survive. The people of Carlentini relied very much on each year's harvest. When crops did not do well, the agricultural workforce did no better. No work, no security, no comfort, hardly any of the amenities of life except for food. So it's basically saying the crops. When crops did not do well, the agricultural workforce did no better. So a big part was how the crops were doing.
Yeah.
There must be a better place, they thought, a better way of life somewhere. And in their desperation, they were ready for the big move. Little did they know then how big that move would be.
Wow, that's so true.
So, you want to do
go
one more
from
chapter?
that- sure. To go
Okay.
from that island to the Midwest in the middle of those cornfields. Ugh.
Yeah, and there's beautiful climate and everything, and that just shows you they liked where they were, but there's the poverty that really drove them.
It was, yeah.
There was the starvation and the just
And no way to
looking
get out
for
of
work.
it.
They wanted
There was no-
new opportunities to
Yeah.
get more and not struggle. Because
My dad said he used to, at times, they were so hungry they had to trap birds in the barn and kill them to eat them. Can you imagine as a kid doing that, having to trap birds to eat?
yeah, well they were hungry.
I know, but you can't
Yeah.
imagine doing that. You got fed.
Yeah, I mean I can imagine it, but I can't realistically picture
You and Drew
doing
chopping
that.
birds to eat. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So.
What's is that spaghetti sauce on there?
I guess so. I might have did that though.
Yeah. You were eating pizzicato.
Yeah.
You definitely got that Italian blood in you with the pizza.
Yeah, for sure.
My dad loved to cook. And the way
Did he?
I didn't hear this, but the reason I know this is watching them cook. Because they always went and got fresh things, and it was almost like they were taking things from nothing to. It seemed like they would be making the dishes they made. It seemed like they came from the food that they must have grown when they grew up, because that's what it was. You know, everything was, it's hard to even tell you. They weren't in recipe books, going and getting things recipes. It was very basic, you know, how they put things together. And it was all the same ingredients, and the reason is because those are the only ingredients they had when they grew up. So they still made dishes from all the same ingredients, but just did different things to them to make them different dishes.
Yeah. What kind of things did your dad cook?
Well, you know,
like pasta, like made his own tomato sauce and stuff?
Oh yeah, they always made their own tomato sauce, and they would make their tomato sauce with pig's feet boiling in it. Yeah.
I want to try chicken feet. I've been wanting to try that.
They didn't use chicken feet. They used pig's feet.
It sounds just as bad.
And then they would eat the pig's feet too.
Yeah, why not? I'll eat it.
Because they were gross, believe me.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen pig's feet?
Yeah, I want to try chicken feet though. Some people think they're good.
That's Oriental. That's Asian,
not just
Italian.
Asian,
That's
soul
not
food and
Italian.
stuff.
Yeah.
You're
But
right. It is
Italians-
Asian though. You're right because I watched this Asian reporter eat chicken
Yeah.
feet with this guy, and she was Asian, and she was
No,
like, "Try
but
chicken feet."
Italians eat pig's feet because that's only one of the things they have is pigs.
Yeah,
And
making me
then-
hungry.
No, pig's feet does not make me hungry. I would never eat one of those things.
Yeah, it's
Never.
probably gross,
It was
right?
gross. And then they would make they'd get a big load of peppers from somebody's farm, and then they'd spend hours and hours broiling them and peeling the peppers. And then once you peel the peppers, they're really soft, and then you just saute them very quickly in olive oil and garlic. That's called pepperoni. That was my favorite. And then they would
Which one? Pepperoni?
pepperoni. That's just fried, you know, sauteed peppers that have already been roasted. And
Okay.
then
Try to speak up a little bit too, because I do have the video.
what else
on
did they
YouTube.
make?
What is that? I spaced out on that. How's it made?
You get peppers and
Okay.
you broil them to make the skins get black and pop up so that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
peel the skins off.
Huh.
By the time you peel the skins off, they're soft.
Mhm.
And then you tear them up and you just lightly saute them in olive oil and garlic. Just not very much
So was
sauteing.
Nannu more of a cook than Nana?
Yeah, he actually was.
It's the same thing with Roy and Ruth.
Yeah.
Ruth was not. Roy was the
doesn't
cook.
cook either. Neither
Wow.
of those people cooked. Believe me.
I mean, he was cook for the family.
Did you ever eat it?
I'm not saying he was like particularly good at cooking. I'm just saying that he was more of the designated cook than Ruth was.
No, he wasn't.
That's what I remember.
No, I lived with them when we first got here.
Ruth was the one cooking everything?
Yes, and we ate we'd eat like rice with a cooked onion in the center of it. It'd be like just rice with onion. And I'd be like, and there was no seasonings on it whatsoever. And like there wasn't
Yeah.
enough to even get full.
Yeah. Damn.
That's all I really remember her cooking. She'd cook that over and over again. I think that's
Mhm.
all she knew how to cook.
Wow.
But that's all I remember, just that rice with
Well, that's
an
what I'm
onion.
saying. Ruth wasn't much of a cook.
No, either was Roy. He never cooked at all.
Wow. Huh.
Mm-mm. She'd make tomato sandwiches. That's another thing she made. And it would just be 2 pieces of white bread,
Yeah.
butter,
Like literally just the tomato.
with the tomato in it, and butter. And those actually were pretty good. I
Yeah,
like
that's
those.
plain, but that's good for sure.
Mhm.
I like tomatoes.
I like tomato sandwiches, but
Yeah.
anyway.
I just ate raw onion. It was great.
oh my god.
I love it.
Where's
I
your
like the
tea?
fact that it's so particular
Do you have
of a
your tea?
flavor. Yeah, it's right here.
So, and
You were
so
gonna say one other thing Nannu made?
So then a lot of eggplant. They would saute eggplant.
Nice.
And
Why don't we eat eggplant here anymore?
I just haven't made it lately.
We should.
I used to.
should
You
do
don't
that.
remember
We should
when I
get
used
going
to
with the
cook.
eggplant again.
I should.
Yeah.
Eggplant's really good. So they would make.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had a falling out with it or something because I just don't see it around.
No, I
very
love
much.
eggplant. I just haven't cooked it much.
Mm.
She would saute eggplant. My mother would make a lot of breakfast things. She'd saute eggplant, onions, and garlic, and some vegetables, whatever vegetable, broccoli or whatever vegetable it might be, and then she'd
Oh, it's the Godfather music.
and then she'd
Talking about
saute
food.
eggs into it. That was one of her things she made all the time. And yes, we ate pasta with homemade sauce and peppers, and we ate a lot of steak and broccoli and a lot of salads.
Oh, that's good.
Always with radishes.
So that's why you're so big on salads.
Oh,
and
every
stuff.
night we had salad. We always had a huge salad, and it had radishes and cucumbers.
A lot of pasta though too, huh?
Lots of pasta.
And you guys are in America, so wouldn't you say you would just eat like a regular American or different?
Mm-mm.
More like Sicilian.
More like Sicilian, but it was cheap. Pasta was really cheap, so once in a while we'd have steak, but most of the time we'd have pasta.
Yeah.
And in Italy they use it as a pre-dinner thing, but my mom made it for dinner.
What, pasta?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And but we always had a big salad, and we always had lots of broccoli. She liked broccoli. Everything was olive oil and garlic. My mom,
I love garlic.
My mom didn't just buy a regular thing of olive oil. When they'd go to the store to get olive oil, it was a can this big.
Wow.
Because that's how much olive oil we used.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so huge. And the pecorino cheese, like you have a little thing of grated pecorino cheese. Mm-hmm. We always had a wheel of pecorino cheese.
Wow.
We had a lot of pecorino cheese, and we had a lot of cheese. We had a lot of salami.
Mm-hmm.
So when we
ate together as a family and stuff?
No, not really. We did sometimes. I think when we were smaller we did, but then as we got older, they'd just make the big pot of pasta and stuff. We did when we were younger.
Yeah.
We'd wait around the table. But as we got older, they'd just make the big pot of pasta and whatever else, and it'd just be sitting in the kitchen, and when you were ready to eat, you'd just go in and get it and sit at the table and eat by yourself or eat with one other person or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was a self-serve. But they did cook a lot. I mean, I never had to cook.
Yeah.
Never. And I ate a lot.
And that was the same table, I'm guessing, maybe the same table, obviously the same location, the same table that I even was at and stuff.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Same table.
Such longevity there.
I know.
That's crazy.
And remember that glass table?
Me and Tyrone spent that last night at that table together before it was sold or we all left or whatever.
Because
I remember
mom died?
Yeah. And we came, and I went out there for that, and I was 17.
Wow.
I was at rehab. And I remember, like, the last night, because, like, Tyrone stayed up all night at that table, and I stayed there with him.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
That is.
He was, like, saying goodbye to this place that he spent a lot of time there. Not as much as you, maybe, but
right.
Similar, maybe more. I don't know.
No. I grew up there.
Well, you grew up there, but he practically did, too.
Not really.
He spent a lot of time there, though.
He did spend a lot of time
there.
there.
Him and Mario.
Do you remember the glass top table in the other room?
Yeah.
Right off the kitchen?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she had so many dinner parties. I mean, like, always. I don't know how she had the energy to do that.
Yeah.
We'd all sit around there.
Well,
She
worked, too? Yeah.
She'd have the neighbors over, like, she'd have, the neighbors over, just whenever. They'd just stop in, and we'd all be around there, and she would just put out a ton of food on that table, and everybody loved it because, they were all from different backgrounds, and they weren't used to that. And the fact is that because my parents grew up starving, my dad was starving, my mom, they didn't have much, that they, just having food was like a huge deal to them. They really were.
Yeah, and they were thankful for it, and they were
yeah,
celebrating
and
it,
so they would
yeah.
make a ton of it and put it on the table, and it was like to say, it was like giving people, gold and silver and.
Yeah, but it is.
Because to them, that's what it was, It's
but
like,
food
look
is
at.
It's better than gold and silver.
I know. It's like, look at here, we have all this food. You can even have some, and we can still be okay.
Yeah. Wow.
We can share it.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it is. I mean, I grew up with that. I like that. I grew up with that spirit of you lay it out for everybody and make a bunch of it. And
I've always fed people that came to my house. Well, it's your house, really, because I live here with you. But that's always how I've been since I was a kid,
I know. You're very Italian that way.
Yeah, and I kind of like attribute it to the culture or whatever. But it's almost like, I guess it is part of the culture,
It is.
But for me, it was just something that was ingrained. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't recall, like, I've never been to Sicily. I didn't grow up around my Italian family, except for you.
I hope that I gave that to you, yeah.
It must be from you. But I know Dad's pretty good about that, too. But it's something that I, like, definitely just, I don't know, like, inherited, And that's just how I am.
Dad's definitely improvement on his parents.
Yeah.
In terms of food.
Yeah, I don't know if that's
make-
his automatic reaction to feed people though, but he's certainly willing to.
But he will make food for people, and he will make enough so that you don't go hungry.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I know that that's English Scottish, because my first husband was also half English, half Scottish. And they never had enough food on the dinner table either. They had plenty of money. They just had
really?
no food on the dinner table.
Wow.
Like we'd go in the kitchen and have to eat the leftovers without them looking because we'd be starving afterwards.
Yeah. But anyways, like, I don't remember, like, necessarily being taught that or not, but I suppose that I was, or it's just part of my culture. Like, some things, that's what's interesting to me about it, is that, like, I don't recall, like, being, like, drilled on it, or, like, how I inherited it,
it's
or
genetic.
whatever. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just how I am. Like, I will, like, demand that people eat. And now that I'm thinking about it, though, it's like, it was passed down to me, because that's how Nana was with people, too, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's, like, how I am, like, I'll actually be like a little bit upset if you don't accept the food. Mm-hmm. Like, I want you to eat something if you're in my house or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I always just thought it was strange when it happens to me all the time, or, you know, people might be having different circumstances or whatever, but when people don't offer me something to eat or try to or whatever, it's just like a little off or different to me. Because my thought is like, that is like the ultimate basic courtesy. And like you're saying, it was really like a privilege for them to be able to do that, and that was them like really enjoying having food, is to be able to share it too.
It was enjoying having food, and it's really interesting to hear this because that's why.
All right, let's do chapter 2 so then
Okay.
you can get back to your
All right.
stuff. Let's see. I might make
fun.
that into one.
That's going to take a